The technicalities of installing NICs and working with network settings are really beyond the scope of this course, but I did want to show you just a few things that you can do on your own, even at a very beginner level. The first one, of course, is taking a look at the hardware. We know that in order to have a network connection, you have to have some kind of a network card. So where do we go to find that? Well, we're going to go down to the Start button, and I'm going to type in Device. And I specifically want to take a look at something called the Device Manager. In Windows XP, you also could go to your Control Panel and choose Add Remove Hardware to see similar types of options. I'll go ahead and press Enter to select this and wait for the window to come up. This actually shows me all of the hardware that's currently available or installed on my computer, and it really can be a very extensive list. Some things that we're used to seeing. For example, at the very top we have the computer. Then there are disk drives. There are adapters that allow us to use our display, DVD and CD-ROM drives, floppy disk drives, and a whole bunch of different categories, including keyboard, mice, and monitors. Eventually, we can see that there's also an entry specifically for network adapters. And there's an arrow next to this, and if I click on that arrow, it will expand it. In this case, I can see that this particular computer does have a network adapter, and it has one, Parallels Ethernet adapter. If I want to know more information, I can double-click this device. Probably the most important thing that I can see here is right under Device Status. It says, this device is working properly. So if I was having network connections, and if at one point I knew the network did work, this can be part of my troubleshooting. Is the device working properly? Well, the computer says that it is. Second thing would be, let's check the cable. Is it plugged in at both ends the way that it should be? If it's something beyond that, you're going to need a little bit more help than we can offer you here. But this is the first general information that you can get about your network adapter. The second thing that you may want to take a look at is the Driver tab. Remember that hardware usually requires a driver, some type of little piece of software or a program that tells the computer or the processor how to actually use, communicate, and work with the device that you're talking about. In this case, how to work with the Ethernet or the network adapter. It tells me what the date is, it tells me a little bit about the drivers, and then if I want to, I can always click this button to update the driver. You have to be aware that sometimes drivers can become outdated. For example, if you're using an older network card, and if you upgraded your operating system, either through something called Windows Update, or you went from Windows XP maybe to Windows 7, then your driver simply may be out of date, and by updating it, it may make it work better, or possibly make it work at all where currently it's not. It's very easy to update the driver. The computer then will go out and look for what it needs to find. You also can disable this device. Now, I wouldn't recommend that, but if for some reason you did not want to use this particular network card, you could disable it, and you could also completely uninstall it. As I said, these are some things that we normally don't get into, and they're a little beyond the scope of this class, but I just wanted to show you that you can come in and see many of the details about hardware. I'm going to cancel out, and now that we've seen that we do have an Ethernet network adapter and that it is working correctly, I'm going to close out of this window completely. Normally what I'm going to do to see if I have a network connection is move down to the bottom right-hand side of the taskbar. You should see some type of network connectivity icon. Remember that in Windows 7 it looks a little bit different. In prior versions it may look like two little computer screens kind of overlapping each other. In addition, in prior versions, if you have an internet connection and not just a network connection, you'll see a little globe. In Windows 7 I can see the icon, but it's actually easier to roll over it, and I can see that I'm currently on a network with internet access. Okay. So that tells me that everything is working correctly. If I want to see details about my network, I can right-click this icon and choose something called the Network and Sharing Center. Different operating systems, though, sometimes have different icons. So if you can't see this particular icon, you can always go to the Start menu, start typing in Network, and choose whatever icon appears. We go into a lot more details about how to use all of these settings in the Windows 7 course. But there are a few things here that we're interested in. Starting at the very top, we get kind of a graphical diagram that identifies my computer, the specific network that I'm on, and that I have internet connection. If I didn't have internet connection, I might see a red X right in the middle saying, well, yep, you're connected to the network, but no internet. Likewise, I might see the same kind of X between the computer and the network itself. Actually, we could click on any one of these icons for internet, the network, or for my computer and open up relevant windows. Clicking on My Computer opens, guess what? The My Computer window. The network opens up the network windows, and the internet opens up, in this case, Internet Explorer. So this is a good thing to be able to see, yes, I'm actually fully connected all the way to the internet. In an office setting, you also might click on See Full Map that will actually show you other computers and devices that are part of your network. I'm a very graphical, visual person, so to me, this kind of a representation is great. Then we get down to the actual information about our network. For example, right now I can see that my network has been defined as a work network. I'm going to go ahead and give this link a click. On Vista, click on Customize. When you first set up a new network connection, it's going to ask you what type of network it should be. On Windows 7, you can choose between Home, Work, or Public. On Vista, you can choose between Public and Private. Windows XP doesn't offer these choices. When you first set up a new network connection, it will ask you what type of network it should be. You can have a home network, a work network, or a public network. And this all has to do with kind of privacy levels. A home network says if all the computers on this network are at your home and you recognize them, this is a trusted network. That means that basically everything on your computer will be visible and shareable and all of those things. Well, obviously, if you're sitting in a coffee shop using their network, you wouldn't want that to happen. So as you move from home to work to public, you restrict what people are able to see. It's called network discovery. And if I'm connecting to a public network at a coffee shop, I don't want people to be able to see that Aaron's computer is on this network. That's just a smart move. There's also a checkbox at the bottom that says treat all future networks that I connect to as public or whatever you choose, and then don't ask me again. Now the reason it says public is because that's the tightest security. You can't get into any trouble if everything's set to public, but it means if you're at an office or at home, people are going to have trouble finding your computer. So I recommend that you just make the best choice. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this. To the right of that, we see an option for the access type. In other words, how am I accessing my network? And here it says Local Area Connection. If I give this a click, it brings up my local connection. It tells me how long I've been connected, what the current state is, how fast my network connection is, and it even tells me how many bytes of data that I have both sent and received. Once again, you can disable this particular connection if you want to, or there's a button that lets you diagnose problems. This is really just an informational box. You'll notice that there's not a whole heck of a lot we can do as far as changing settings, and that's good, because again, if you're going to be making changes, you probably should have a little bit of guidance in doing so. We'll go ahead and close this out, and know that that is a good place to get information about what's going on with our computer. For example, if we're sending data but we're not receiving it for some reason. There are also options here for setting up a new connection, connecting to a specific network, and even choosing different groups and sharing options that you may have. In general though, what I wanted to show you is how to find your network adapter, how to use the icon in the system tray to see if you have a network and or an internet connection, and then just introduce you to the Network and Sharing Center so that you do have kind of an introduction to where you would go to find information about your network connection, as well as how to fix it. For our purposes though, we're going to go ahead and close this window and be very comfortable with the fact that you now have a very solid foundation in understanding what networks are, what pieces are required, and how computers actually communicate across the network, whether that's a home network, a business network, or the ultimate wide area network, the internet.